Everybody, my name is Mike Miller, retired news anchor from WISN TV in Milwaukee. I'll be moderating today's press conference. And we do have a nice interpretive service. The little headsets in front of you, if you haven't discovered them already, they should be set to Japanese translation on channel 2A. If you would rather hear English, just click the little up button one time, and that should take you to channel 2G, and then you will hear English. This is the first of several events that celebrate the 45th anniversary of Kikkoman Foods and its soy sauce plant right near here in the town of Walworth. A very high-level conference will follow this event entitled Economic Perspectives for Sustainable Growth, USA, Wisconsin, and Japan. That will feature an engaging discussion about strategies to maintain economic progress and thrive in the current environment. It's the 6th time that Kikkoman has sponsored a conference like this, and as is our tradition, very distinguished leaders from Japan and the US will lead the conference discussion, much like the panel you see in front of you. A lot of these guys are part of it. Before I introduce the speakers for today's press conference, it's my pleasure to recognize the folks seated at the front table who will participate in the upcoming economic conference. Dr. Mark Moni is on the way, the Chancellor of UWM. He's got a big Board of Regents meeting. He'll be here later. Mr. Neil Bradley is the Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Next to him, Mr. Toshihiko Fukui, President of the Cannon Institute for Global Studies and former Governor of the Bank of Japan. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. You'll hear more about him in a moment. Mr. Yuzaburo Mogi, the Honorary Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Kikkoman Corporation and Chairman of the Board and Honorary CEO of Kikkoman Foods Incorporated. Governor Walker and Mr. Mogi will both speak in just a minute. Next to Mr. Mogi is Mr. Taichi Sakaiya, an author, economist, and former Japanese Minister of State for Economic Planning. Next, Mr. Mike Laskowitz, Vice President and General Manager of the Power Control Business at Rockwell Automation, headquartered in Milwaukee. Next to him, Ambassador Motoatsu Sakurai, the President of the Japan Society. And Mr. Mark Hogan is the CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. We're grateful to Mr. Hogan and the WEDC for sponsoring this afternoon's economic conference. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our host for today's conference. Mr. Yuzaburo Mogi is the Honorary CEO and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Kikkoman Corporation and Chairman of the Board and Honorary CEO of Kikkoman Foods Incorporated. Mr. Mogi is a global business leader whose work has helped his family's more than 300-year tradition of brewing soy sauce that reaches consumers all around the globe. He is a strong advocate of the international exchange of food culture, the connection of a country's food traditions to its history and its culture. For the past 60 years, 6-0, Mr. Mogi has worked in a range of management and executive capacities with Kikkoman Corporation. He rose to the position of President and CEO in 1995. He was elected Chairman of the Board of Directors in 2004. He transitioned to his current role as Honorary Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board of Kikkoman Corporation in 2011. Kikkoman established Kikkoman Foods Inc. to meet the growing demand for soy sauce in North America in the late 1960s and early 70s. The company celebrated the grand opening of its first American plant in 1973 right in Walworth, Wisconsin. Kikkoman holds the distinction of being one of the first Japanese companies ever to build a production facility on American soil. Today, Kikkoman markets a wide variety of premium sauces and seasonings in America and more than 100 countries. Kikkoman's commitment to quality ensures that it will have a place on dinner tables around the world for many years to come. It's my honor now to ask Mr. Mogi to come to the podium for his remarks. If you would, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to be with you. It's Kikkoman's honor to sponsor today's Wisconsin-US-Japan Economic Development Conference. We are hosting the conference as part of our 45th anniversary celebrations for Kikkoman Foods. It's a unique opportunity to hear a discussion that includes some of the foremost American and Japanese experts on global economic development. Kikkoman operates in the worldwide economy every day. We sell our products in more than 100 countries. About 60% of our sales during our last fiscal year came from businesses outside Japan. So did about 70% of our operating profit. Global economic issues are critical to our success. Kikkoman is a global company today, but we haven't always played on the world stage. It took innovative thinking and calculated risks to expand beyond our home country. Kikkoman opened its first U.S. soy sauce production facility here in the state of Wisconsin. We are happy to be celebrating that plant 45th anniversary. Our Walworth plant has become the model for Kikkoman's worldwide expansion. Kikkoman now operates soy sauce production facilities in California, the Netherlands, Singapore, Taiwan, and China. But we don't dwell on our achievements. We are always looking to the future and striving to set an example as a good corporate citizen. We believe part of our role is to help prepare the leaders of tomorrow by supporting education. So we are committing $600,000 to fund scholarships for graduating seniors at 6 local high schools. That on top of millions of dollars we've donated to the University of Wisconsin and other local institutions over the years. The local community has given Kikkoman strong support over the past 45 years. We'll always be grateful for our partnership with the state of Wisconsin and the many wonderful friendships we've developed here. We are delighted to be able to support deserving students in our local community as they pursue their dreams of higher education. Thank you again for attending this press conference and being part of our anniversary celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mogi, for your remarks and for Kikkoman's long-standing commitment to furthering the education of student leaders in the school districts surrounding the soy sauce plant here. $600,000 more. That will be a life-changing gift for a lot of deserving students. Now I'd like to introduce Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. He began his public service career in 1993 when he was elected to the Wisconsin State Assembly. In 2002, he was elected Milwaukee County Executive. In 2008, he was reelected to that position. In 2011, he was inaugurated as the 45th governor of Wisconsin. Reelected to that position in 2014 and sworn into a second term on January 5th, 2015. Under his leadership, Wisconsin has enjoyed a budget surplus every year. More people are at work than ever before, and property and income taxes are lower than before he took office. Scott and his wife Tonette have 2 sons whom they raised in Wauwatosa. Please welcome Governor Scott Walker.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks to each of you for joining us here today. I begin by thanking my friend, Chairman Mogi. It is good to have you here, your wife here, your family here, and our friends from Kikkoman, both that are here in Walworth County and those from Japan as well. I understand, we'll hear later, but both of our wives had a good luncheon earlier that was hosted at our executive's residence, and we appreciate the opportunity to share in that as well. I want to say congratulations on 2 counts. One, which we'll obviously be talking about all throughout the day and the evening, and that is on the 45th anniversary of the start of the Kikkoman operations here in Wisconsin, specifically in Walworth County, in the community of Walworth. And additional congratulations on this being the 50th anniversary of the Japan-U.S. Midwest Governors Association, for which Mr. Mogi is the chairman as well, and this will be the 50th anniversary. So this is a summer filled with anniversaries in both counts. We appreciate your tremendous leadership, the positive impact it has for Kikkoman, the positive impact it has for the state of Wisconsin, as well as the Midwest and the nation of Japan. And so we appreciate your leadership. Thanks to the panel here today, not only for being a part of the press conference, but for our discussions later and our celebration this evening. For me, this is particularly personal, as Chairman Mogi knows, because not only is Kikkoman a major legacy employer here in this county and in this state, but I grew up just down the road from here. I grew up in Delavan, went to Delavan Darien High School, and as Chairman Mogi has said knows from me saying this before, I actually sang as a child at the Kikkoman plant in Walworth. I was invited as part of the swing choir to perform for one of the celebrations there, having grown up here in the 70s and the 80s, as Mike talked about, the impact that Kikkoman has had not only on the economy in this region, but on the culture. I'm honored to be back again as the governor of the great state of Wisconsin. I was here 5 years ago for our 40th celebration, and I'm honored to see many familiar faces here today as well. But one of the things I love, and I'm looking forward to seeing an adapted version of that this evening, was the video for the 40th with some of the interviews with some of the people who started out early on, in particular, like many of my relatives, some of the farmers in this area in Walworth County who came off the farm to work for Kikkoman, who talked about at the time, we take it for granted 45 years later, but back in the early 1970s, it wasn't that many years after World War II, and in a lot of areas around the world it might have been full of friction and misunderstanding, but instead this video showed, both from Kikkoman employees and executives, as well as many of the workers and farmers and others and families in this community, that Kikkoman brought that all together. And it was fitting because there were obvious reasons to put a production facility like this that we're proud to say is the largest soy sauce brewery in the world, right here in Walworth, Wisconsin. But obvious things like access to soybeans, some of the best soybeans in the world right here in this region, access to clean and fresh water. We're proud to be not only surrounded by two Great Lakes in the Mississippi, but as we see just out the window here, we're home to 15,000 inland lakes. That's a few thousand more than our neighbors in Minnesota who put it on their license plates. But more than just the water and more than just the soybeans, the other major reason for Kikkoman to be here was the people. The people who matched the work ethic, humble, decent, hardworking people, just like the people in the Chiba Prefecture, and were part of the Kikkoman tradition for hundreds of years, are now firmly a part of the tradition for nearly half a century here in Walworth County. It was that same humble Midwestern spirit of hard work, determination, get the job done, and it was a fit that was natural. And that's why I'm looking forward to tonight's celebration as well, because we love to hear stories about that. Over the years, it's not only been a good source of not just employment, but it's supported many a family here in this community and this region. And ultimately, we found over time, even as recently as in the past year, has been something we've been pointing to when we encourage other employers, not only from Japan, but from around the world, to come and locate in the state of Wisconsin. Even as recently as last year when I was in Japan making a case to bring sharp LCD panels to the state of Wisconsin, we pointed to Kikkoman as an example of that long-standing commitment and relationship. And for me, that's why it's an honor on behalf of all the people of the state of Wisconsin to be here today to congratulate my friend Chairman Mogi and to all the representatives and dignitaries that are associated with this fine global company. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, and we all appreciate your commitment to sustained growth of Wisconsin's economy. I'm just wondering if there's any video of that swing choir performance back in 19 whatever. Apparently not. Luckily that was before cell phones. Mr. Mogi, Governor Walker, and anyone on the panel here are happy to answer your questions. I would just ask that whoever's going to answer the questions, please use a microphone so the translators can pick it up and so the media can pick it up. Anyone with a question? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, wait for the microphone too. There you go.
Yeah, Governor Walker, have you noticed any change in terms of attitudes of foreign companies in terms of their interest in and willingness to invest in Wisconsin or in the states after our new trade policies have come into effect, or as they're coming into effect now?
Well, the good news is as I travel the world, I point out that trade decisions overwhelmingly, trade policies discussed at our federal government level, but the action of commerce is overwhelmingly at the state and at the local level. And so we've made a compelling case not only for export and for imports, both of which, for example, with Japan are up in the first quarter of 2018, but for foreign direct investment, we've made a compelling case that we're open for business, and that means we want business not only from Wisconsin, the Midwest, or America. We want to do business with people around the world. And again, a good example of the point I was making before is Sharp, which the parent company, of course, is Foxconn. One of the things, many of the things that were appealing to them, one of which was us making the case for Kikkoman's presence here, that it wasn't a short-term presence, that it was nearly a half a century, that it was built on trust, and that's the kind of relationship we made. So whether it's with a company like that, other Japanese companies, or for that matter, a company like Haribo, which is from Germany, which is building the first North American facility to make gummy bears. I'm getting hungry just talking about this. Soy sauce gummy bears. I'm going to have to go eat. But we've seen an active and engaged interest in foreign direct investment in the state. And it really goes back to 1973 and that first step with Kikkoman's commitment here.
Next question. Yes, sir. Wait for the microphone if you would. There you go.
Thank you. Governor Walker, are you or is Kikkoman at all worried about the recently imposed tariffs and the production of soybeans and what sort of effect that might have on soybean productions, particularly here in Walworth County?
Well, actually, that question goes hand in hand with the previous question. The best way to deal with trade issues is to have operations in the United States, for which Kikkoman was a visionary in terms of that. And so in terms of any impact, having, as Chairman Mogi mentioned, now operations in multiple locations around the world, but having a presence, a physical presence here in Wisconsin and in particularly the United States certainly helps. I've been talking quite a bit at different panels here in Wisconsin, Chicago, and elsewhere around the Midwest, about a lot of discussion about the trade imbalance in different situations. The best way to deal with that is, I think, more than government policy, it's through commerce. If you do more business, if you make more investments, if you encourage more foreign direct investment, that's the best way with a trade balance to be more equalized no matter what country you are. And that's why for us, at least at the state level, through our Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, through the other entities we're involved with our Wisconsin manufacturers and commerce partners, with our trading partners, and of course the U.S. Chamber and others we work with, is really to make the case to do business here in America. And particularly, we'd gladly take all the business that people are interested in doing in America and do it right here in Wisconsin. But we know we'll share with others along the way. But that's the best way to deal with some of the issues that are really the driving force of President Trump's policies, are trying to level that balance off. I understand and appreciate his intentions. I just think some of the best ways to do that are by building a bigger incentive to make foreign direct investment.
Anyone else? Go ahead. As soon as the microphone gets there.
On the topic of the endowment to Walworth County Schools, this is maybe a question for both of you, but maybe particularly you, Governor Walker. One school in particular in the area, Della Venderian, who you went to high school with, that district has been struggling recently financially, and they recently had to close an elementary school. What do you hope that this endowment, what kind of impact do you hope this endowment will have on that school and the other schools generally?
Well, it's important all throughout Walworth County, but you're right about the district I went to, Delavan Darien. It is, in fact, a few years ago, my wife and I helped open up a Boys and Girls Club at Phoenix Middle School just because of the economic challenges of many of the families within that community. And this is just going to be remarkable. For a lot of those families, it seems odd because I was saying that when I was in school in the 70s and 80s, but it's true again for the next generation. A lot of those families are students where they would be first generation attendees in a college or university. And so having scholarships to provide that kind of opportunity is priceless in terms of what it means not only for those students but for those families to help lift them up through education and opportunity to places they never could be, never have dreamed of. And that, again, just shows, and this isn't a one-time deal, this is part of a long-standing commitment. You had Kikkomans make the investment here 45 years ago. You've seen them expand back at the 30th anniversary, made the announcement and expanded operations. And you've seen consistently now, whether it's these scholarships or whether it's investment in the University of Wisconsin system, be it in Milwaukee or Madison, that they don't just talk about corporate responsibility, they live it. Again, I think that's part of the reason why over nearly a half a century, you've seen such a strong bond being created between the people, not just of Wisconsin, but specifically here in Walworth County, and the great leadership and team at Kikkoman.
Anyone else? Jason, I saw you. Okay.
You know what? I'll tell you, and out of respect to my Kikkoman friends, if you got questions off the Kikkoman topic at the end, I'll pull aside for a few minutes and gladly answer those.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else?
For Japanese journalists, they can use Japanese language.
Yes.
Yes.
Any Japanese journalists welcome to ask? Yes. Wait for a microphone. There you go.
She came from Chicago, so she speaks.
When Kikkoman Food had a 40th anniversary, Kikkoman donated 1 million to the betterment of the water quality.
Yes.
Could we hear what happening about water quality by the donation of that 1 million by Kikkoman?
How, in other words, how have previous donations affected water quality?
Yes.
Because a lot of it has gone toward water quality programs, yes.
Sure, the chancellor's not here. He's still coming back from the Regents meeting. So the chancellor from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee is where the School of Freshwater Sciences is actually at. I know it's been a catalyst, and Mark Hogan, who's our CEO at the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, may want to comment on this as well. But we've seen tremendous work being done. It has a benefit not only in Wisconsin, it really has had a global impact because the work done there in conjunction with the Water Council and the Global Water Center, which is in Milwaukee, which is a partner with the School of Freshwater Sciences at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, has done work quite literally around the world. It's one of only a handful of global water centers, and it's working on not only fresh water and usage here and ways in which companies like Kikkoman and others can minimize the impact as they use water and do it in an environmentally sustainable way. But they've also helped in terms of water mitigation, flooding, clean water access, and other things all around the world. And oftentimes when I and again, our CEO, Mark Hogan, go on trips around the world, be it in Japan or anywhere else, one of the #1 issues is the impact of water and clean water technology here in the state. And again, that's in large part due to the generous contributions of Kikkoman.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Wait for the microphone here. Thank you.
本日ありがとうございます。毎日新聞の今村と
Thank you
申
very
しま
much.
す。
I am Imamura of Mainichi Newspapers. Kikkoman has been here for many years, and what kind of benefit does it have for having Japanese corporations and plants be built in this area? Do you have anything that you can list as one of the benefits, or many benefits that you offer?
tell you what, I'll ask our interpreter to say that one more time just because the volume was turned off on mine, so I apologize. You don't have to, but can the interpreter repeat that for me in English?
Okay, what would be some of the benefits? Can you hear me?
Yes.
What would be the benefits of having more Japanese companies and plants be introduced to this Wisconsin? Can you give some of the reasons why they should come here?
To follow Kikkoman's lead. No, more than just that, but certainly, quite seriously, Kikkoman, when I go, as we do every other year, this year we'll be in Omaha in September for the 50th anniversary. It rotates every other year into one state, one of the Midwestern states. The other year, as it was last year and will be next, it's typically in Tokyo, Japan, where we have the Japan-U.S. Governors Conference. But I mention it frequently there. I mention it on other trips. Talked about it last year when I met with Prime Minister Abe. There are several benefits to coming to the state of Wisconsin. We've created a very positive business climate, a stark change from where we were years ago. In 2010, when I was a candidate, we consistently ranked into the bottom 10. We're now one of the top 15 to 10 states for business in the country, depending on which list you look at. And it's because we've dramatically reduced our tax burden. We dramatically reduced the cost for regulations while still preserving health and safety. We dramatically changed the legal environment so that it's not restrictive. We've changed in terms of even the workforce issues. Wisconsin is now, as is almost every Midwestern state, following our lead in that of a few others, a right-to-work state, meaning that people get to choose whether they want to be in a labor union or not. That has consistently been an issue when it comes to foreign direct investment. Even with a low unemployment rate, we've invested $365 million in the workforce development over the last few years to make sure that both existing businesses and any new businesses that want to come to the state, invest in the state, will have the workforce that they need for the 21st century. So we've got a great package. We encourage anybody to go to wedc.org. And we'd be more than happy to make the connections about why it's good for a Japanese company to do business in Wisconsin.
Other questions? Anyone, feel free. Oh, microphone again, same lady, please.
例えば日本の企業のどういったところの
So for Japanese
個別名はいいんです
companies,
が
you don't
業
have to
界どういっ
name
たところに来てほしい
anyone,
ってい
but
うのがあ
what
り
kind
ます
of industry do you want to invite to state of Wisconsin?
Well, we have, again, we always start out by talking about Kikkoman, but we've had, whether it's Komatsu in terms of mining equipment, we've done good work with them in expansion. When I was in Tokyo last year, I saw the Wisconsin flag. I gave them up on the wall, whether it's Fujifilm, for which I often joke. My mother, who I mentioned grew up down the way here, I think single-handedly kept them in business with all her green boxes of film she took of me as a kid. Today, they're not a film company. They have two operations. Well, they have operations around the world, but they have two operations, one in Milwaukee and one in Madison, that deals with life sciences. And so there's a real connection there. We're pretty much wide open. Most people think of us in agriculture and in manufacturing, for which we've got a great heritage and continue to be advanced in both. But we, because of the University of Wisconsin, have a growing presence in life sciences. We're one of the top 30 universities in the world at the University of Wisconsin. We do over $1 billion worth of academic research and development. And so whether it's in life sciences, construction, information technology and computer science, healthcare, any number of other energy, power, and controls, we have some major industry clusters, plus those that people might be surprised of. Aviation and aeronautics are an area that is an industry cluster here in the state of Wisconsin. So we have quite a wide spectrum, and as I alluded to before, water technology is increasingly becoming of global interest, and we have one of the best and largest water councils and global water centers in the world.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Not a question, but Mr. Mogi and Kikkoman, I'm here representing one of the school districts that you're going to be so generously supporting. And I know a number of us are here today, and certainly want to just express our appreciation for that very, very generous contribution that you're making. And you know, I see it's the 45th anniversary of Kikkoman, and just think for the many more than 45 years that this is going to benefit thousands and thousands of students in Walworth County as they go forward. You know, we're here to express our appreciation for that. And also, you know, having been a resident of Walworth County now for about 20 years myself, I know parents who work for your fine company and the children that come out of those houses, and I know how they talk about your company and how great it is to work in that environment. So we're just here to really thank you for everything that you've done for us and what you've done for our community as a business partner, as a friend and a supporter of our children going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for saying that.
Anybody else? It's rare that you have a panel this distinguished. You have a good chance here. I might ask one, being a former news person myself, and maybe this one could be answered by any one of our Japanese panelists. Tokyo is preparing to host the Summer Olympics in a couple of years. Olympics often lose money. What are the latest economic effects that are predicted, and then does it matter if it loses money, because the intangible benefits may be more than losing some money?
Okay, Mr. Sakaya will answer.
Okay. Get a microphone there. Yeah.
Now, Japan has a very large expectation for the Olympic Games. This is because due to this Olympic Game, Japanese culture and economy will be revitalized. This is our expectation. After this Olympic game is over, what's going to happen to Japan? It's a huge concern for Japanese people. However, we are looking forward to Olympic Games, and we are going to expand investment and consumption and revitalize economy and enhance our culture. And after that, in 2025, we want to host an exposition, World Exposition. And we want to continue doing that in order to revitalize Japanese economy and increase population.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. She came ready to roll.
I would like to ask a question to Mr. Fukui. Kikkoman has been active here in the United States for about half a century with production. And what kind of important impact does it have for the Japanese economy? I would like to respond to your question. Japanese economy is on the current of the overall globalization of the world economy, and we are one of the members of this world global economy, and we need to develop ourselves as part of the overall world economy. However, when you look at the present situation of economy and its trends, although this may be my very personal feeling, since the Industrial Revolution of the mid-18th century and the capitalism, the industrial capitalism that followed, in other words, manufacturing, mass production, and mass distribution and mass consumption was a cycle on which the engine was driven in our capitalistic economy, but I think it reached some kind of a maturity. Since the Lehman shock or crisis, when you look at the development of the world economy, we took a long time in order to sort of clean up after this Lehman crisis. It took about 10 years, and finally, recently, we have been able to see a more favorable cyclic situation. However, we need to really gain a true strength of the economy. I don't know whether that is the situation. Even when you look at the United States economy, which is the leader in that field, the growth of the productivity is not as we would like to see it to be. We had seen improvement in the employment and low unemployment, and there is no sudden jump in the growth. I think there are some things that are still lacking in the fundamentals of the economy. And in order to rectify that, you need to look at something different from what we had been leaning on in the post-industrial society and its capitalism. We need to think of something that is new in this new capitalism, even more so than the past. Cultural and intellectual capability needs to be nurtured, not within a country, but in a cross-border way, so that we can, as a whole, show an overall capability, and I think we need to be able to create values. Kikkoman is a company to which I am one of the board member, and I do often express my views to Kikkoman as an outside director. When I look at the activities of Kikkoman for the past 50 years in the state of Washington, they have really nurtured the cultural friendship based on which values were created among the people of Wisconsin and Kikkoman, even under this current of the industrial capitalism. I believe that they would be able to find a new path forward in the coming years, not only here in Wisconsin, but in other areas as well. I believe that Kikkoman has such a capability.
Thank you, Mr. Fukui.
Because of the presence of Kikkoman in this state, is it helpful for other Japanese companies to come to the state or United States? Other Japanese companies are trying to resolve labor shortage issue and are trying to develop more in the future. Now, we cannot determine the movement of other companies by looking at Kikkoman's movement, but the basics is by cultural and intellectual fusion, we want to create new value, and in that sense, it is definitely true that Kikkoman is going to be a good example.
Might have time for one more, but we have an economic conference to get to at 2:30. Anyone have a final question? Yes, sir.
The Chinese government has announced that they have a program, Made in China 2025. For anybody on the panel, how do you think this will impact the Japanese economy, and does the Japanese government plan to have some sort of a similar program?
中国の計画について、
Regarding the Chinese plan, although I am not that knowledgeable about the specific plan, I would like to make a comment. Japan is a country that is close geographically to China, and we cannot separate ourselves from China. China will probably have different kinds of development and impact on the future of
私の見
the
解で
world
は
economy,
やは
and
り
we are looking closely as
日
to
本
what
と
would
アメリ
happen.
カの関係が大事であ
I
る。
believe that US-Japan
第2番
relationship
目に
under such
中国と日本
framework
の
is very
関係が
important,
重
and
要
at
だ
the
と思っ
same
ています。
time, secondly, Japan-China relationship
現
is
在、
very
中国は
important. At
非
present,
常に野心
China
的な
is
経
very
済計画、
ambitious
軍事
in
計
its
画を持っている。
economic and military
私たち
plan.
は中国と友好のうちにも、
Although we have friendly relationship with China, I think we have to be always be somewhat cautious in our relationship with China.
Thank you, Mr. Sakaya. All right, and thank you all for coming. If there are no more questions, we'll conclude this. We look forward to seeing you at the Economic Conference, which will be just down that way. There will be some stairs on your left. Go up the stairs, and the big conference room is up there. That starts at 2:30. Thank you again. And a nice hand for everybody on.